It's time for Lefties Losing It, and we do talk about MSNBC a lot in this segment. It is the mental asylum masquerading as a news network. We have an embarrassment of lefties losing it riches there. Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Joe Scarborough, Jen Psaki, and this next guy, Lawrence O'Donnell, who often gets overlooked because, let's be honest, he's quite boring. But be no doubt, he's as demented as they come. Remember this, Gold?
Stop the hammering. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it?
I don't know.
Where's the hammer?
Where's the hammer? Where is the hammer? Well, let's look at Lawrence's latest output. Here he goes on a wacky, fact-free rant. And just imagine what sort of a fringe-dwelling loon you have to be to think CNN is too pro-Trump.
CNN is already owned by a right-wing Trump supporter and has compromised itself accordingly. The firing started right away in that new regime. That's why Jim Acosta is no longer there and others are no longer there. And everyone who remains has become much more careful in anything they might even think of saying about Donald Trump. And now CNN eagerly pays a Trump supporter to lie on CNN every day and night for Donald Trump.
Firstly, CNN is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. It's a publicly traded company. It is virulently anti-Trump day and night. And the so-called liar that Lawrence claims is degrading the station is often the lone conservative on panels of 4 or 5 pundits all leaning left. Yes, this unseemly meltdown was all about Scott Jennings. An MSNBC anchor has lost it because CNN has a lone conservative on some of its panels to provide some level of balance.
Paying Scott Jennings to lie about Donald Trump is money very well spent. Scott Jennings, who used to be an aide to Senator Mitch McConnell, was not always a rabid, lying Trump supporter. When he first started appearing on television, he was capable of criticizing some of the more extreme Trump positions, but Scott Jennings figured out where the money is and how he could get his own podcast and decided to become the J.D. Vance of CNN. And here is the single goofiest thing ever said by anyone in charge of CNN in that network's history. The lost in America Englishman who heads CNN said, quote, "Scott's like D'Artagnan. He's got his sword out, and he's got about 4 Democrats against him, but he spiked them all off. That's much more like it, I think. He's a worthy opponent, as it were."
Well, that statement is 100% accurate. Scott Jennings does typically take on 4 rabid Democrats at once and comes out on top, not because of lies or playing on emotions, but because he sticks to the cold, hard facts, something foreign to MSNBC anchors like Lawrence. Now to a teeny tiny little agitator, 4'6" Quinn Hobble, who the leftist media love to present as some sort of lovable protester who is being victimised by ICE agents. But the footage suggests otherwise. Let's look at what Quinn has to say when speaking to the media and the behaviour that actually led to his arrest.
Only 4'6", and I can't see. What harm was I going to do to them?
Back, keep them back.
Don't you tell me what to do, you have no idea how much I would like to beat the shit out of you. Hey, dance on your goddamn grave. Hell yeah, I hope somebody kills you guys.
I decided that I was going to sit. So I was sitting in the grass, and my legs were just barely in the driveway, and they came up. I think there were 6 of them, and they grabbed me, and they started to drag me across the driveway on the ground. And they put their foot or something on my back, and some part of them on my neck. It was scary.
There's nothing in my socks, don't feet are too small.
Being dragged across the ground when you can't see what's happening around you. They call Portland a war zone. The only people that's making it a war zone is ICE.
Shut up! Shut up! Don't talk! Do not!
Let's go back to CNN, and polling expert Harry Enton had more bad news for their Lefty Losing It audience.
You might think, given that the Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate, that a government shutdown might actually hurt the Republican brand. But in fact, it hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. When we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown. So what we're seeing here is the Republican brand in Congress has actually improved somewhat compared to where we were pre-shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans control. And that's the math that John Thune and Mike Johnson are looking at.
Yes, Republicans and independents are not blaming the Republicans for Schumer's shutdown. That's good news for the midterms for some.
It's rallying the base for sure. Look at this, the net approval rating up 12 points versus pre-shutdown. But it's not just with the base. It's also with the middle of the electorate. Look at this, among independents. It's up 8 points as well. So we've got a situation here where Republicans with the shutdown are actually rallying their base, but it's also something that's not hurting them with the folks in the middle. If anything, it's helping them with folks in the middle. And this is the type of math that if you're Republicans, you like to see, right?
Yes, the math is mathing, but what is the shutdown doing to the Democrats' chances at the midterms?
So how do Democrats, how are they positioned right now?
Yeah, so, I mean, look, the generic congressional ballot, which traditionally Democrats have done really well on, and if you look at this point back when Trump was president the first time around, Democrats are up 11 points. Look at where it is now. Democrats are ahead, but they're actually only up 3 points. This is, in fact, the worst position Democrats have been on in a generic ballot at this point in midterm when there was a Republican president in the last 20 years. And this is no different from pre-shutdown. So Republicans aren't losing on this metric either. They become more popular, and they're actually in a pretty good position for them historically when it comes to the generic congressional ballot.
This is a concerning number for Democrats, are you saying?
This is a concerning number for Democrats because it's considerably worse than they traditionally do in midterm elections when there's a Republican president.
Harry Enton.
Oh, dear. Let's bring in documentary filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, the shutdown isn't hurting Trump, not with the base, and just as importantly, it's not hurting him with independents.
No, it's not. In fact, the Democratic brand is so low that they're actually bucking history. Historically, the government in charge is always blamed for the shutdown, but that's not the case here. This is, I mean, what do you want? The Democrats have voted 13 times to keep the government shut down. And frankly, look, you listen to Chuck Schumer and what he's saying when he's decrying the shutdown. What does he point to as a problem? He points to Trump helping out Milei in Argentina. Really, that's a problem? Milei is reshaping the Argentinian economy into a free market economy for the first time as a light to the entire region that they will follow. That's a problem? He talked about Trump dancing in Malaysia. Yeah, he was in Malaysia cutting deals left and right. He was in Asia brokering a peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia that is 100 years old. That's an older conflict than Israel and the Palestinians. Yeah, that's what he's doing, and that's what the Democrats are decrying as a problem with this shutdown. And by the way, the coalition of the Democratic Party, which has been strong so far, is now fraying. There's a federal union that is now telling the Democrats, you guys better stop this soon. This is being a problem for us. And at the end of the next week, 41 million people will stop receiving food SNAP benefits, which is food stamp benefits. By the way, 41 million people on food stamps, that in of itself is a massive problem. That's where we stand right now, Rita.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a problem. I think that's something that deserves a national discussion. I mean, there's something very sick in the country when you've got that many people dependent on food stamps to feed their families. Now, let's go to your beloved New York, where leftist rabbis are campaigning for Zohran Mamdani. Yes, they are.
Hi, Rabbi. Hi, Rabbi. Hi, Rabbi. Hi, Rabbi. Hi, Rabbi. Hi. We're among the thousands of Jewish New Yorkers who've been out door knocking and phone banking to elect Zohran Mamdani. We're also rabbis.
We know Zohran will fight to make our city affordable and safe for our families.
And for our neighbors of all faiths and backgrounds.
As Jews as rabbis, as New Yorkers, we believe that all people deserve to thrive. Zoran agrees.
Ah, dear me. Zoran agrees. What percentage of the Jewish community do you think is backing Zoran Mamdani? He's made some radical comments, and these radical comments aren't ancient history. They're very, very recent indeed.
Hi, Rabbi. I mean, Rita, you're more of a rabbi than they are. One of them literally said they don't believe in God, okay? Okay.
Yeah.
What rabbinical school did they go to exactly? That was so cringy. That was for the first time I saw it, I thought it was a Saturday Night Live skit, but I knew Saturday Night Live wouldn't do an anti-Mamdani video, so it couldn't be that. It had to be real. Yeah, look, I'm ashamed to say that if you look at the last 3 polls, 33%, on average, 33% of Jews in New York will vote for Mamdani. That is completely and utterly shameful. Maybe even more shameful is that when you're listening to this video and they go through all the reasons why they're supporting Mamdani, they didn't mention a single Jewish issue, right? This is, and by the way, that 33% is driven by mostly, like you saw in that video, young women, as I call the Yenta class. But I feel like if you're going to be Jewish, say you're supporting Mamdani, maybe bring up some Jewish issues. I don't know. Why don't you bring up an issue that Mamdani literally said that while the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's laced by the IDF. Yeah, when you go as a Jew, whenever I hear that, I go, oh, whatever I hear next is going to be horrible and terrible, and that's a perfect example of what we're talking about.
And you say that as a proud Jewish man.
I say
now,
that as a
Ami, we may all want... we may all wonder how someone like Zoran can be so popular, about to become mayor of New York City. But you hit the streets recently, and I think this next clip explains why.
Jails are so racist.
They're so racist.
Is it racist for a judge to say, hey, you have a history of violent crime?
Yes.
And to keep them because of that reason?
Yes.
Your criminal history should not play any role whatsoever.
I don't think so, no. And I don't know if I know anyone who's never committed crime.
Well, just because you commit crime doesn't make you a criminal.
Right.
That the focus of the criminal system, the judicial system, should be less on safety and more on racial equity.
That the judicial system should be more on equity?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's the affluent New Yorkers who are the biggest problem, isn't it? It's always the people in the better parts of Manhattan who've got these wacky views and they vote accordingly.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the reason why, like Mamdani said, he wants to abolish jails. This is what he said. These are his words. And of course, that comports with what you heard on that video. Judicial system is racist. The judicial system is out to get black people. Well, this is why when Mamdani ran against Cuomo for the Democratic nomination, he couldn't win the black and Hispanic vote because they understand the ramifications of those statements. I mean, the other part of that video was after you watch these crazy leftists talk about destroying and upending the judicial system, I went to Harlem. Actually, the best part is I asked this one person, I go, if I went to Harlem, would they agree with you? And he goes, of course they would. So then I went to Harlem. I was there for hours. Not a single person there said that it's racist. Not a single person there said we should abolish jails. They specifically said that these kind of policies, which makes our city, our neighborhoods more unsafe, they're on the tip of the sword when it comes to radicalization of changing of judicial and policing in the city. They're the ones who feel it more than I do in the affluent Upper West Side of New York. That's why he can't win the black and Hispanic vote. He doesn't get it. He's so far removed from reality.
Now, Donald Trump received quite the reception in Japan. He loves Japan, and Japan seems to love him back. The president lavished praise on Japan's first female leader, Prime Minister Takaichi, welcoming her pledge to accelerate a military build-up. And he also signed a trade and rare earth deal in Tokyo. Ami, he's also going to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Japan. So it's been a love-in today.
Yeah, he sure loves that when leaders say they're going to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's his jam. You know, they were late for the press conference. It was so cute because they were both watching the World Series. Hey, Shohei, let's go Dodgers. Look, yeah, this is great. This is again, this is Trump at his best. You know, the new prime minister is an accolade of the former prime minister who loved Donald Trump. He had a great relationship with him in his first administration before he was tragically killed. And this is a continuation, I think, of that relationship with that 4-year hiatus in between with Joe Biden. And I think what you see is you see him in action, right? So first of all, I think what hasn't been said by a lot of people is that historically Japan has really spent very little to nothing on defense, kind of an outgrowth of their warlike ways in World War II. But they've been spending 1% of their GDP on national defense. Well, he's going to get them to move that number up to 5%. That is game changing. That is NATO level spending. And that is exactly what they need to do to counterbalance China's predations. And like you mentioned before, he has been laser focused on the mineral rights deals around the world, including with Japan and other nations in Europe, to create this iron chokehold around China, the entire periphery on China. He is setting them up to make sure that China is not going to make its influence known in that region and in the world.
And he got this reception, and you mentioned the history there, the reception very different to what Joe Biden got not too long ago. He really didn't have anyone of note greeting him when he touched down. It was a very different fanfare this time around. And importantly, the president also announced that Toyota is going to be spending $10 billion investing in manufacturing plants in the US. I don't have long army, but that is a big win.
No, look, no question about it. And like I said before repeatedly, like, I'm not a tariff guy, but if using tariffs as a tactic versus a strategy, I'm all for it. If you're able to use tariffs to force people to invest in our country, yeah, this is the result of that.
Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time.